So November 5th, 2021, the beautiful city of the villages, so people say near to heaven, in Florida. My name is Jong-woo Han. I am the president of Korean War Legacy Foundation. We have more than 1,500 interviews of Korean War veterans, not only from the United States, but also from other 21 countries that participated in the Korean War. Mm-hmm. We are doing this to preserve your memory because it's been already a long time ago, more than 70 years ago, and to honor your service. But most importantly, we want to educate our young generations about the war you fought for in Korea and the legacy of it, which is South Korea's simultaneous economic development and democratization. Mm-hmm. That's why we're going to do this and provide the materials to the teachers when they talk about the Korean War in the context of the Cold War in world history. Right. I think it's the most effective way to keep your legacy with our education. So it's my honor and pleasure to meet you, sir, and thank you for coming. Please introduce yourself. What is your name, sir?
James Houp, H-O-U-P.
H-O-U-P. Houp?
Houp.
Houp.
A lot of them pronounce it Houp.
Houp?
Yeah, but...
What is the ethnic origin of this name?
Pardon?
What's the ethnic origin of this name, last name?
I think it's German.
German? Got it. What is your birthday?
July 14th, 1931.
31. So now you are 90 years old?
90 years old.
You look great, sir.
Thank you.
And where were you born?
Oley, O-L-E-Y, Pennsylvania.
O-L-E-Y?
Pennsylvania.
P-A. And that is the farmland?
Pardon?
Rural city?
Yes.
And tell me about your family background when you were growing up. Your parents, what did they do, and your siblings?
I'm the oldest of six. My parents worked on a farm, and we lived on a farm.
What kind of farm was it? Did you have cattle?
Cattle. We had milk cows, and hay and horses, things like that. Mm-hmm. And things. We were on the farm with cattle and stuff till I was 15. Then we moved to a place called down Boyertown, Pennsylvania, which was a fruit orchard.
I see.
A big fruit orchard, apples and peaches and stuff. I was there till I graduated from high school. And then
what high school was it?
Boyertown.
B-O-Y-E-R?
E-R-T-O-W-N.
Boyertown High School in Pennsylvania. When did you graduate?
1949.
So a year before Korean War broke out?
Yes.
And
I graduated in June of 1949, and I enlisted in the Army in November of 1949.
Enlisted. But let me ask you this question. Did you learn anything about Korea from the school?
Not that I can remember.
You didn't know where Korea was at the time?
Not really.
Not really?
No. I was stationed I took basic training at Fort Knox, Kentucky. And then I was transferred up to Fort Monmouth, New Jersey, to be a teletype operator.
Teletype operator. What does that
teletype.
mean? Teletype. So Morse code?
No. How could I describe it? More like a typewriter.
Got it.
More like a typewriter. The war broke out June of 25th. Yeah. I graduated from the school June 30th. There was about 15 in our class. I and another soldier graduated at the top of our class. They called us in and said they need us over at GHQ, Tokyo, Japan. They gave us a 10-day leave, and we had to report up to the airport up in New York, and fly from New York to Seattle, Washington. Seattle, Washington, I woke up in the morning to fly over to Tokyo, Japan. We landed up in Anchorage, Alaska. It was a troop plane where you set at the side. We landed up in Anchorage, Alaska to get some more fuel. We landed in a small island in the Aleutians, and from there to Tokyo, Japan.
Yeah.
And when I got to Tokyo, Japan, for some reason or other, they put me in the Signal Corps, the 7th Infantry Division, and they were on maneuvers up at the base of Mount Fuji. Then from there, after the maneuvers, I never did see a teletype machine. After that, I wound up laying telephone lines, climbing telephone poles, and we moved back to this camp, Sama, and then 2 days later we I was driving a Jeep with wire, and we went down to Yokohama to load up in the ships. And from there we went over in ship for the invasion at Incheon.
Oh, so you participate in the Incheon landing?
The third day of the invasion, I went in.
What, 30?
Third day.
Third day?
3 days. I went in with my Jeep and a roll of wire to lay telephone wires.
Okay, so did you go to Incheon directly from
Yokohama.
Japan? Yokohama?
Yeah.
Directly? You didn't land in Busan or in any other?
Nope.
So
I went directly to Incheon.
So Yokohama to Incheon.
Right.
And so you arrived in Incheon September 18th?
Probably,
right?
Yes.
So how was it? Already 3 days passed from September 15th. Were there any still war going around, or what happened?
The war was down. They hadn't recaptured Seoul yet, I don't think. It was...
Not yet. They didn't capture the Seoul yet.
Yeah. I drove in at during the night.
Yeah.
Blackout. When we got out, actually, I don't even know where the hell we was, but we stopped and slept. I slept across the steering over the steering wheel. And when it got daylight, you could hear some shooting in the background. At daylight, we went up, and I got to my company, where some of the signal company already was at a big warehouse in a small town. They told me then to go out to the first crossroad, make a right, and follow that road till I run into the other team that's laying telephone wire, because he's running out of wire. So I went out and made at the first crossroad, made a right. Well, I got to some streams where the bridges were out, and I had to go down through the water. I did see some dead Koreans, North Koreans laying, and I got up to the team, and he was out of wire. We laid the wire and then up to a infantry where they could call back. At that time, we didn't have cell phones the way they have.
Right.
So we had to lay wire. Well, we couldn't make connections back to the division, so we had to go back to check. Here, a bunch of some tanks drove our wire and chewed up our wire, and we had to resplice new wire. We got up to the one place, and I seen guys sticking their heads out of the foxholes. And I thought, hey, Jim, this is war. Well, it started getting dark. We still couldn't make connections. So there was one little village that we put wire up on the poles there. So I went up to one pole with a telephone and a flashlight to splice in to see if I could make connections back to the division or up to the company. Well, while up there, I heard ting, bullet whizzed by. Well, I dropped the flashlight and I dropped the telephone, and I came down the pole. So the sergeant says, "That's it, it's too dark, we're going to go back." So we went back to where the company was and had some lunch, had some dinner stuff.
So that was in Incheon.
Pardon?
That was in Incheon.
That was out of Incheon.
Out of Incheon, but toward to Seoul.
No, up the other way, up north.
North.
Yeah,
So still there was enemy.
right.
And it is very dangerous because you went
Well,
up to
up
the
there-
pole and become the target.
And I had a flashlight, so they could see the flashlight
At night.
at night.
So
Well, it was getting dark.
it's like a volunteer to be a target for the sniper.
I said, that, whoop. And stuff.
What was your unit at the time?
The 7th Signal Company.
But where does that belong to us? Division and
The
regiment?
7th Infantry Division.
7th,
Infantry Division.
yeah, and regiment and battalion?
Pardon?
Do you know regiment?
It
Battalion?
was just 7th Signal Company.
Got it. What was your rank at the time? PFC?
This October, I forget the date in October, I was promoted to PFC. 18 days later, I was promoted to corporal in October. In October, towards the end of October, they come and ask me if I would want to move into the division.
Headquarter?
The division office,
Yeah.
where there was, I think, 4 or 5 officers and only 3 enlisted men. Where we did make up names for the companies and all that stuff, I was in that, then from, well, I think it was April or May of 51. I moved back into the land telephone lines again and stuff. But anyway, we did move back when I was in the division office. I had a Jeep too, and trailer to pull when we moved from one place to the other. We moved back to load up, back to Busan, to load up, to make a second invasion.
Second invasion
Yeah, up at
to Wonsan. You moved back to Busan with the 2nd Division?
No, to make the second invasion.
Right.
And the North Koreans were retreating real fast at that time. And there was a holdup, so we were on the ship for a few days, and Bob Houp was in Busan. They took us off the ship in to see Bob Houp.
Did you do the same thing, the laying on the telephone line in the Yalu River? What did you do there?
There I was in the signal division,
Uh-huh.
signal office.
What did you do there?
More typing and things like that.
Typing for whom?
Well,
So you
we
went
we had a colonel, a lieutenant colonel, a major, second lieutenant, and a warrant officer. And I and a sergeant were the only 2 enlisted men in the division headquarters. I'm going to say division headquarters office and stuff. I wrote that about 6, 7 years ago, and sent it to my brother up in Pennsylvania. I was talking to him on the phone one time, and something about Korea. And he says, you know, did you ever write anything down? Mm-hmm. So I wrote that, mailed it up to him, sent it up to him. He made copies of it, and his wife's a hairdresser, and she cuts one of the history teachers at the high school that I graduated from hair, who was a friend of my nephew. Well, he read it. He gave it to another history teacher at the high school. About a month or so later, my brother called me and wanted to know if they could put a copy of it in the library at the high school where I graduated. So they did.
So you went from Busan to Hungnam. That was East Sea, right?
East?
East side of it, not west. East.
North.
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 Yeah, and it was Hungnam. And you went up to Yalu River.
Well, up towards, like I say, within 30 miles of the Yalu River.
Yeah.
And when the Chinese came in, we went back to Hungnam.
So you invaded Hungnam, went up to Yalu River.
Didn't invade Hungnam.
Okay.
I don't remember that. I have the town in there where we made the second invasion.
Right, you didn't write the town name here. I just read it. And so Chinese intervened, right? And then you withdrew from there?
We withdrew back to Hungnam to set up communications with the ships.
Wow.
We stayed in a warehouse there in Hungnam, and I saw the Marines and the Army retreating back to load up on ships from the Chosin Reservoir.
Yeah.
And stuff. It was cold. It was like 30, 32 degrees below zero and stuff. When most of them were back and stuff, we went to get on, and I had to get on a little LST, and they took us out to the ship. We had to crawl up and then on the ship, and it was like 30-some below zero, and it was cold. When you're on the LST going back to the ship, going out to the ship, when the water hit you, it just froze and stuff.
So you took the LST from Hungnam to where?
To a ship.
To ship, okay, yeah. What ship was it? Meredith? Do you remember?
It was an American ship.
Meredith.
Yeah.
The name of the ship.
Oh, I don't remember the name of the ship because there were so many ships out there loading up servicemen, equipment, and things like that. And I think I read somewhere where they took 20,000 North Koreans, loaded up, take back down.
And you were there?
Yes.
You saw everything?
I don't say I saw everything.
But you were there to witness all those things, right?
I saw the soldiers riding on tanks, walking. They were coming back from the Chosin Reservoir. I saw that.
What was the spirit at the time? It was like a debilitated.
I don't.
You know, so many Marines were killed there in Changjin Reservoir battle.
Oh, yes.
And they had to withdraw, and everything was frozen because it was so cold.
Right.
And there were many, many Korean refugees there.
Right.
Must have been like hell.
They were loaded up on the ships to take down to Busan and stuff.
But mostly you did what? Work in the division office, right?
Right. Worked in the division office, doing mostly typing.
Yeah.
Because I had the teletype operating.
That's amazing. You are the historical witness of those.
I tell you, it wasn't nice to see the guys coming back from the Chosin to load up on ships at Hungnam.
Yeah. So from there, where did you go? Did you go to Busan?
Back down to Busan.
Yeah.
And we got to Busan, loaded on a train uh, which had no windows in. And we took a train, and I don't know what the name of the town was. When we got up to where already some of our people from the signal company were at. And that was Christmas Eve when we got up there. Christmas Day.
You mean the the main line of resistance? Where was it?
What's that?
Your unit.
Part of the unit was already at that place. Towns, I don't remember.
의정부 or 판문점 or Punchbowl?
I don't remember.
But it was near to 38 parallel.
Yes. No, not too near the 38th parallel. It was back further.
Okay.
We were back further yet.
But it was not Seoul.
No.
North of Seoul.
South of Seoul.
South of Seoul.
Yeah, we were down south of Seoul yet at that time.
Uh-huh.
At Christmas.
So what did you do there?
Well, we didn't do much of anything until we moved out to another place.
Which
and
is?
then the 7th Infantry Division later on was moved back to more peaceful time. But like I say, we got up there Christmas Eve. We had Christmas dinner at the mess hall there. We got mail that we hadn't gotten any mail for like 2 weeks with all this at Hungnam and stuff and back. And I think I got 3 or 4 packages and from home.
That's nice, isn't it?
It sure was. Because the one room, there was about 12 of us in there. My mother, coming from the Pennsylvania Dutch area, sent me about 3 or 4 what we called an apie cake, which is like a breakfast cake. There was another soldier in there that came from near Reading. His mother sent him some shoe fly pies. We had apie cakes and shoe fly pies for dessert.
In the middle of war.
In the middle of war.
Getting mail from home.
Right.
That's the American system.
Yes. Yes. We're glad to get them.
But at the time, I think there was also severe battle between Chinese, North Koreans, and the U.S. forces that withdraw from Changjin and from the Western Front, right?
Yeah, there was others.
Yep.
Withdrawn.
So from there, where did you go? Did you go up north?
No, we went up, not too far because we were more or less drawn back, and I had to move from the division office back to land telephone lines again to get into the rotation when they started rotating men back as new personnel were coming in.
Yeah.
Then in July of 51,
Yes.
I was returned back to the States.
All right. So during the whole time, were there any moments that you could been killed? You might have been killed.
I'm going to say no.
No.
The only time was when we moved back from one town to go back to Busan to make that second invasion. There were some North Koreans set up in the convoy. They dropped a couple mortars down and blew up some 2.5 ton trucks. And we were delayed there for a while.
Yeah. When you're laying out the telephone line, where did you sleep? As soon as you landed in Incheon on September 28th?
We were in a big warehouse and slept on a cement floor.
Huh. Wasn't that cold at the time, right?
No, that was October when we went in Incheon.
Okay. Have you been back to Korea since then?
No.
So we have to bring him and others back to Korea through the revisit program run by the MPVA. Can you go? No?
No, Walker.
They will help you.
And I'm by myself.
So you can go single.
No.
They will give you a wheelchair.
At 90 years old, I don't want to
All right.
fly.
But do you know what's happening after the Korean War in terms of Korean economy and society, democracy, and so on in Korea?
From what I've read, yes.
What do you know about that?
Well, it's been going real good. I was on the honor flight, and when I was on the honor flight at the Korean Memorial down up at Washington, D.C.,
Yeah.
3 Korean gals and a guy came along. They stopped and were talking with me, and they wanted to take a picture with me, with them,
Yeah.
and stuff.
They are nice, right?
They were very friendly and
But isn't it natural that the Korean people pay tribute to you, thank you, because you fought for them,
yes,
right? So
Yes.
it's a natural thing.
yes,
Yeah, nothing strange.
right.
Do you know the rank of Korean economy now in the world?
No,
Do you know the size of territory of South Korea? How big?
yeah, just as South Korea.
South Korea is a little bit bigger than Indiana state and
Oh.
half of the Florida.
Okay,
But their economy is ranked number 10 in the world.
in the world.
Can you believe that? Did you believe that? Did you ever think that Korea would become like this today?
Well, when I was there was a lot of huts, grass huts and stuff like that, and very poor. There was not many buildings that was standing and stuff like that.
Have you been to Seoul?
Pardon?
Have you been to Seoul when you
No.
were there?
No.
The Seoul is much bigger than Manhattan now.
There's-
Much bigger than.
you know,
Yeah.
no, we turned right instead of left to Seoul and stuff.
So, are you proud to be a Korean War veteran?
Yes.
Why?
Why?
Yeah.
I served my time, and when I enlisted in 1949, in November, I didn't anticipate of having to go to a war.
Right.
And what I saw and stuff has, I would say, broadened my mind as to how it can be if anything ever would happen here in the United States.
Mm.
And so now the service people have better things to communicate. When I was there, all we had was the late telephone lines and the double E8 that we would have to dial to make connection.
Yeah.
And so,
That's what you did. Make communication possible, right?
right,
Yeah.
right. And so,
That's your contribution. Yeah.
now Korea has really turned.
Korea really
Has turned very good,
very good.
very good.
Yeah. But still, we don't really teach much about the Korean War here in the United States and also in other countries. I've been to other countries. They don't even have even one paragraph sometimes in some countries,
Right.
known as Forgotten War. Why do we have to have the Korean War? You said that it's turned out to be very good, but Forgotten War. What's going on?
When I wrote that there, I gave it to my brother up in Pennsylvania,
Yeah.
and he gave it to the history teachers,
Yeah.
and to one of the history teachers who was a friend of his son. And he gave it to another history teacher, and they asked if they could put it in the library at the school there because they were teaching at that time on the Korean War.
Yeah.
So there is some being taught at the schools of the Korean War, but at the beginning it was called what? Not the Korean War.
Conflict.
Conflict, yeah.
Yep.
But it was not a conflict, it was a war.
I know. You were there, right?
Yeah.
It was war.
I was there at the beginning.
It was not police action either, right?
No,
Nope. You were there in the Incheon landing. That's a history, real history. That really turned the Korean War upside down.
right.
Yep. And you laid a telephone line there so that they were able to communicate. You were in Hungnam. You were up to Yalu River.
Near the Yalu River.
Yeah. And in the context of Jangjin Reservoir battle, one of the biggest battle in the history of U.S. Marine Corps, you saw the Hungnam evacuation, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And that was supposed to be the coldest winter on record in Korea,
Right.
that winter and stuff.
So you are the witness of this big history, early phase of the Korean War in 1950.
Right.
Yep. So
Yes.
I want to thank you for that. I
You're
want
welcome.
to thank you for that.
You're welcome.
And that is your legacy. And that's why we want to record everything and give it to history teachers so that they can talk about grandpa name is Houp, or in the Incheon landing,
Right.
in the Hungnam evacuation,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
Isn't that nice?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Well,
What is that?
this is.
No. Show it to the camera.
Oh.
No.
Oh.
No. James, hold it up to your chin so that I can. Let me zoom in.
It was a newspaper that some reporters sent to the local newspaper.
So is that you?
Yeah.
It doesn't look like you now.
I wonder why. 70 years or more.
So hold it. Corporal J. Houp,
Right.
2 returns from Korea.
Right.
Did you bring the M1 with you?
No, I didn't.
That's amazing. Hold it. Let me take a picture, okay? I'll publish this picture with your interview so that everybody can see it. Very handsome looking young man. Excellent. Thank you. So,
Now, my mother had cut it out of the newspaper, and that's what she put it on.
James, do you have any message to the Korean people in the context of 70th anniversary of the Korean War? Still technically at war. What would you say to Korean people?
What did I say?
To Korean people. Is there any message that you want to say to Korean people? Now, after all those years.
After all those years, I really see what they have turned around and came up good.
So you have a good memory.
Yes.
Great. Thank you again for your honorable service.
Right, you're welcome.
Yep. And we will edit this interview and then we'll share this with the history teachers and we will upload it into the website of my foundation's website so that you can watch it. Alrighty?
Okay.
Okay. Thank you again for this wonderful interview.
Right.